On April 19, 2026, the United States government triggered a sweeping new policy imposing 45% tariffs on imported titanium and other critical hardware materials. Within days, the global tech supply chain began to seize up, threatening to force the screens, servers, and smart devices to go completely black. The official reasoning broadcast from the administration focused on a single goal: forcing American manufacturers to buy their raw materials domestically. By taxing foreign imports, the government claimed it would rebuild the U.S. industrial base and secure absolute economic independence. This policy imposes a hardware death warrant. Because the United States lacks the natural reserves and the processing facilities for these elements, the 45% tariffs strangles the very domestic manufacturers it was claimed to protect. The modern American economy runs exclusively on these specific critical minerals. They are the irreplaceable building blocks inside lithium-ion batteries in our smartphones, microchips driving hospital diagnostic machines, and components regulating the power grid. Placing massive penalties on the raw elements required to build digital infrastructure ensures a systemic collapse of the American tech sector. Without access to these base materials, an industrial resurgence is mathematically impossible. Extracting and processing raw materials operates on a timeline measured in decades. Establishing new mining operations, building chemical processing plants, and securing environmental approvals takes years of lead time before a single ounce of usable material hits a factory floor. Titanium exposes the fatal flaw in this tariff strategy. To build modern electronics, especially structural frames and hinges in high-end devices, manufacturers rely on raw titanium sponge. The United States currently possesses essentially zero domestic titanium sponge capacity. Aggressive tariffs on a material that cannot be produced at home leave foreign competitors untouched, while placing the entire burden on local factories. These manufacturers must now pay steep penalties to acquire the exact same inputs they required yesterday, starving them of operating capital. To make matters worse, foreign markets are actively weaponizing their resource monopolies against U.S. buyers. China recently eliminated export VAT rebates on hundreds of material lines, immediately driving up base prices for titanium forgings by 7% before any U.S. tariffs were even applied. Every manufactured product relies on a bill of materials, or BOM, a strict accounting of every component's cost. When you stack a 45% import penalty on top of rising global baseline prices, the math fails. The cost to produce a device quickly exceeds the price it can be sold for in a competitive market. Creating an artificial cost barrier for essential materials we cannot mine ourselves guarantees American manufacturers will burn through cash reserves and face rapid bankruptcy. Modern electronics manufacturing relies on a highly choreographed system known as just-in-time production. Factories hold very little inventory, depending instead on the seamless, continuous delivery of thousands of distinct components, arriving exactly when they are needed on the assembly line. The Ford automotive plant in Cologne highlights exactly how fragile this system is. The facility relies on 298 different suppliers spread across 16 countries, keeping only 4 hours of parts on hand. If a single required subcomponent is delayed by a border dispute, an entire multinational production line permanently stops. This diagram shows the internal components of a standard smart device subject to the new tariffs. Over 36% of the required semiconductor chips and more than 70% of the world's lithium-ion batteries originate from heavily taxed regions, making them immediate bottlenecks. Shortages migrate from consumer gadgets to the critical brains of hospital-grade diagnostic equipment and industrial automation controllers. A delay in securing a 50-cent sensor prevents a $50,000 medical device from ever being completed. Localized taxation on intermediate components bypasses corporate strategy and physically forces entire downstream manufacturing ecosystems to grind to a halt. Manufacturers operating on razor-thin margins have only one option to survive this supply chain paralysis: passing the skyrocketing production costs directly to the end consumer. This chart shows the projected impact of those cost increases on consumer purchasing power. As retail prices spike, the Consumer Technology Association estimates that laptop and tablet purchases will drop by as much as 68%, and smartphone sales will decline by up to 37%. The mathematical reality is that the American middle class is being priced out of modern hardware. For the average family, a high-tech lifestyle is becoming a financial impossibility. This creates a geopolitical stratification of pricing. While the international market continues to access affordable, untariffed technology, the United States isolates itself, becoming an artificially expensive island where basic electronics are treated as luxury goods. Recognizing this dead end, major corporations are already abandoning their U.S. facilities. They are migrating production to non-taxed manufacturing hubs in places like Vietnam and India, further stripping the domestic economy of jobs and capital. These tariffs strangle the American digital standard of living. They ensure the country's technological future becomes distinctly and permanently analog.